Hello, my name's Adrian Goldberg and welcome to the Byline Times podcast. This time, a night at the opera in Odessa and a blockade in Kaliningrad as we discuss the latest developments of the war in Ukraine with Zarina Zabrisky. Before we do, just a reminder that the Byline Times podcast is funded by subscribers to the Byline Times, our brilliant monthly newspaper. We can report without fear or favour because we don't have to dance to the tune of any wealthy proprietor. Instead, we rely on ordinary readers who take out subscriptions. So please subscribe if you can. You get more details on how to subscribe at our news-breaking website, bylinetimes.com. That's bylinetimes.com. And if you've already taken out a subscription, thank you. Now to Odessa, Ukraine, and Zarina Zabrisky, who has remarkably been watching the opera. Zarina, hello, tell us more.
Hi, yes. Hi, Adrian. It's really good to talk to you. I am indeed in Odessa again, and I've been on and off coming out to the mainland to speak at different conferences. But for now, I'm not planning to go and speak anywhere else. I'm just based here and I'm speaking from here. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring the stories to the mainland. I feel like, in a way, we being the West are starting to lose our focus, which is understandable. It's summer, and we as collective West all have our own issues in every country, you name it. But as I'm here and I'm the eyewitness, I can tell you that it's still important to remember that the war is happening. And while I am about to tell you a wonderful story of humanity and arts triumphing over the evil, I do want to mention that it's really the war situation. Today, we had about 3 or 4 air raids and several explosions. And I just came back from another object and another place of interest that was damaged by the shock wave from the explosion. And I'm going to mention that too. And there was some explosion that damaged an infrastructure object or something. Today, we're not yet at liberty to speak about it because it takes a day or two until the official news arrives. And I have some idea, but it's a no-no for all the journalists or wannabe journalists. If you see something and you want to rush through and report it, that is not advisable, because it's helping the aggressor. So back to the opera. If you have never been to Odessa, which is a big mistake, and you should immediately head here as soon as the war is over and Ukraine wins. It's a beautiful, amazing European cosmopolitan city by the sea with very rich history, incredible architecture, and inner landscaping and gardening and spirit. And one of the gems here and the pride and the heart of Odessa, in a way, is the Odessa Opera Theater. And I was really hoping to go for a tour. And funny enough, there's still a lot of tours happening here in Odessa. And it's not for tourists, because obviously we don't have tourists right now. There's some refugees or just internally displaced persons, and they're treated like tourists and being offered tours. But the truth is that Odessites love to take walking tours or history tours or gastronomical tours of their own city. The number of tour guides I've met here exceeds any other city. I've never seen, like, every other person I meet is a tour guide. And they all have wonderful stories to tell. And so right now they are giving tours of the Odessa Opera Theater. And I really wanted to go, but I'm writing a lot of articles and doing analytics, and that just didn't happen. However, in the evenings, I was able to go to this remarkable historic event on the 17th of June, the theater reopened. It was supposed to play Aida on February 25th. As we know, most of us heard about it, that on February 24th, Russia started a full-scale aggression in Ukraine. So the theater closed, just like many other places. And not only it closed, it was surrounded with these anti-tank hedgehogs and the barricades made of sandbags, and you could not approach it. There were military standing all around, and you could not take pictures of it. So my previous visits, I couldn't even take a picture. You could visit and catch a glimpse of it from behind the sandbags, but that was it. And so this time, on the third day since my arrival, I walked there, and to my, utter joy and amazement, I find out that the access is now open. You can actually come and see the theater. And there are roses around it, like in between the sandbags that are still there, but the hedgehogs are gone. And the other day, they even turned on the fountain in the square. So it's really beautiful. And I walked around and took pictures of Aida poster that never was to be. And it was such a poignant feeling and bittersweet. And then I think I was checking news, writing my daily column, which I now do. I now write for several newspapers, and one of them is Euromaidan Press, which I also recommend along with the Byline Times, of course. And I was putting together the daily events, which are mostly military. It's military analytics. And I look through a lot of things, and I see that the opera theater is opening, and they throw in an opera gala, followed by Ukrainian opera, and then by a ballet gala. And then they just open the whole repertoire season. And I have to say that I love opera and ballet. I grew up with it. I've been volunteering in San Francisco Opera Theater for years. And I was just so excited. So I got the tickets, and my friend and I went, and we got to sit in the first row. And it was very strange, Adrian, because I've been to the theater before, of course. I wrote about it, and I've never seen it that empty. And I first thought that was because people either didn't know about it or a lot of people left the city. But it turned out that only 250 tickets were sold out of 1,500 possible seats that could be occupied. And that is because the safety requirement is a bomb shelter. So you can't have a theater show in this city or in this country now unless you have a basement or some kind of space that can provide well-equipped, safe bomb shelter. And that's what happened. Well, I don't want to go into the structure of the theater because a part of me thinks that that could be classified information. Although I heard and I've seen people writing about it and I heard them talking about it, but I'm not going to take a risk. Let's just say that there is a bomb shelter there. And that's because the theater was built in the 1880s, at the end of the 19th century. It's a Viennese Barocco. And by Forbes magazine assessment, it's one of the 11th, I think, main architectural attractions in Eastern Europe. And some people name it number one opera theater. It's certainly up there. Just to mention that they had a special system of ventilation in the 19th century. They had glacier in the basement. And so they kept ice in hay. And the cool air was coming out through the vents underneath every seat. That's, of course, at the bottom of the theater. If you sat, on the very top, you were probably dying from heat. But So it went. And there were even special ducts where the water from melting ice would go. Like, it was really well thought through. And so now I interviewed the engineer of the theater, and he told me that they just adjusted the space, and now it is fine to have currently for 250 seats and 300 standing spaces. And as they go into the repertoire season, he said optimistically, they will build it up to all 1,500 seats, the capacity.
And you describe it, I read the article you wrote for By Wire News, which is also another excellent news source. And you describe it sounds like such a beautiful theatre. You describe the royal gold and burgundy curtain, the antique columns, the intricate stucco, the cherry red velvet chairs, and a ceiling painted with Shakespearean characters, a 2.5-ton crystal chandelier. I can see this place, Zarina. But was there something surreal about watching opera and ballet in such a beautiful place at the same time as Russian missiles were whizzing overhead?
Yes. I mean, like, if you've been to an opera house like this, maybe Covent Garden, maybe Vienna Opera, or, any in Prague, or, Paris and Petersburg, in Paris, actually, it's quite modern, so I take it back. But, it's this old European over the top. Inside, I believe it's French Baroque. Like, outside, it's Viennese Baroque. It's like Rococo, like all the little curls of gold and little angels. And it's just too much. You feel like you're in a candy box. And then the curtain goes up, and the announcement goes, if the air raid starts, please proceed to, follow the ushers to the basement. And if the air raid lasts for longer than an hour, the show is canceled, but you can show us the ticket and come to the next show. So they kind of thought it through. And then they make other announcements like usual, don't turn on your equipment, turn off your phone, which nobody did because it was a historic, everybody was filming. And after that, they go, glory to Ukraine, and the audience is going, glory to the heroes, Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava. And then, of course, the first number, or the opening overture, in a way, was the anthem, the national anthem, and everybody stands up and put their hand on their chest, and everybody, including myself, knows the lyrics by heart, and we all are lipping it alone. And I see a lot of people are crying, and it's hard not to cry. It's a very moving moment. But then, as they go on with the repertoire, first few songs were in Ukrainian, and you still have the sense of something unusual happening here, expecting the air raid or whatnot. But then, as they go into Verdi, Puccini, like overture to Aida, or, Romeo and Juliet, duet, you forget, because, especially if you enjoy opera or classical music, you get carried away and you start thinking, I like this soloist. And then, of course, there was Vitaly Billy, and he's a La Scala and Metropolitan soloist. He was incredible. Forget the war. It was just like a rare opportunity, and you completely forget. And the same happened at the ballet, because I just wanted to, and also I wanted to write a good article. So I ran to the ballet show during the air raid, because I was writing my analytical column and I was getting late. I was like, oh, damn it, it starts at 4. I might not make it. And lo and behold, 4:45, the air raid goes, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I'm like, okay, well, that means they're not going to dance. I'm just going to run anyway. So by the time I made it there, it was like 10 minutes, it's quite close. So 10 minutes late. And by that time, the air raid was over. I just didn't make it to the bomb shelter because some people got to check out the bomb shelter.
But I mean, that's the reality of life, I guess, at the moment in Odessa. And when we were chatting a little bit earlier, although there is this incredible spirit of defiance, which is reflected in the fact that opera has restarted, that ballet has restarted in this gorgeous theatre, the intensity of the Russian attacks, from what you said, appears to be increasing.
They were increasing. I mean, I just got in. I was starting to make my daily column for tomorrow, and there was an interesting statistics that I found from one of the channels on how many air raids we got just in Odessa. So here, for the last week, we got 19 air raids, and they lasted for longer than 11 hours. And each one was about 36 minutes. I mean, that's a lot. You know, like you wake up and there's an air raid. You go to bed, like you're just about to close the eyes and there's an air raid. And by this time, I think, you know, it just gets a little bit on your nerves. It's kind of like a mosquito. It's like, oh, no, not again. I mean, it's like, I was just going to. But then people just ignore them, which, of course, not a good thing, because then you hear boom, and you know, we are lucky because the air defense units are working really well, knock on wood, but sometimes they're just not able to intercept or destroy the missiles, and like today they were not, and we had several explosions. So I just came back from an interesting place that got damaged today from the shock wave, not direct damage, but indirect. And it's the biggest in Europe museum of soccer. It's incredible. It's a palace and a park dedicated to soccer, to history.
I know, listen, I'm a massive football fan. We call it football over here, Zarina. And I had no idea. In the UK, in Manchester, there is a national football museum, which is very good. I had no idea that Odessa had a massive soccer museum.
It's the biggest in Europe. And I assure you, I haven't been to any other football museums. They call it football here as well. Americans call it soccer. But it's absolutely gigantic. It's room after room after room. It's like a Louvre of football in a way. And there's also a big exhibit dedicated to the British football with every single flag, or you know, what do you call it? Like, it's like a scarf. I have to, certain football terms are not familiar to me.
Yeah, well, it could be a flag or a scarf. We have both of those. Yeah.
This gentleman collected basically all his life, everything. He still plays football, and he has a funny little exhibit with one of the very famous Odessa football player. Was invited to England in 1966, and Queen Elizabeth threw a party, and she actually danced with this football player. And so they have this, I took pictures when I write the article, I'll send it to you. There's a photograph of this football player vis-a-vis Queen Elizabeth, but supposedly the picture of them dancing was either destroyed or not allowed, like banned from usage by his wife. They sit around and she's very jealous. So, and it's like all these incredible stories. And the only reason we found out about this museum, my fixer friend and I, because it was damaged. The Barcelona glass plate from that covers the special lights, it fell down and broke. And there's some other glass, like usually shock wave hits the glass, the windows in the glass. So I will have the picture of the damage. Fortunately, it's not a lot, but they had to evacuate most of their trophies and most of their exhibits because of the danger. A lot of buildings around were destroyed. Well, not a lot, some, Let's put it, compared to other cities, Odessa is, doing, knock on wood, okay. Right now it's being, attacked and targeted, but yeah.
One other thing I must ask you about is the development whereby Kaliningrad, which is a Russian enclave, hundreds of miles from Russia itself, but the former German city of Königsberg, it was granted to Russia in 1945 after World War II under the Treaty of Potsdam. So it's a little bit of Russia next door to Lithuania. And Lithuania has blocked goods traveling through its own country to Kaliningrad. And Lithuania's done that in the belief that it is simply enforcing EU sanctions. It says it's not blocking anything else that might be useful to the people of Kaliningrad, but that it is simply enforcing EU sanctions. But Russia has argued that this is a provocative and a hostile act by Lithuania. And that is a threatening and worrying development, I would suggest, in this conflict.
Exactly. It is very alarming, although I would say that it's not exactly unexpected. For one thing, this little pocket of Russia in the midst of Europe is a trouble waiting to happen. I was always very, watching it and not believing that this situation actually exists. And right now, of course, there's the ban, like you said, that Lithuania put on the transit to the Kaliningrad region. So Lithuanian representative has been summoned to the Russian Foreign Ministry, and she was told that if freight transit to Kaliningrad region is not restored in full in the nearest future, then Russia reserves the right to take action to protect its national interests. And this is basically, it's a direct threat, right, Adrian? And also, apart from that, they also announced that there will be the training, military training with heavy equipment and artillery, and they called it the direct aggression of NATO against Russia. And today, just recently, like about an hour ago, we got Peskov talking about that, and we all know that he represents Putin's opinion. So, it is a very alarming situation. But then at the same time, we have to remember that it's not the only country that right now is having conflict with Russia. Russia is constantly speaking ill, if you will, of Poland, saying all kind of absurdities, like that Poland wants to grab a part of Ukraine, that Poland should be a gray zone between NATO and Russia. I mean, you can't even repeat these things because they can't make sense. And there are constantly threats on the Russian propaganda channels towards Poland in particular, because Poland has been consistently helping Ukraine more than any other country. And just recently, we have this developing situation with Kazakhstan. I don't know if you've seen that, but there was some kind of offense that the Kazakh president took during the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. And then from there, Kazakhstan it decided to impose the European Union sanctions on coal delivery before the European Union started to do it, kind of preliminary. And now Russia is threatening Kazakhstan that if they don't release the Russian coal, if not, then again, another threat. And they basically threaten pretty much anything and everyone around them and not so close to them. So yeah, I would watch what's happening with Lithuanian situation and ban. I would watch Kazakhstan. I would watch Poland. And Zelensky yesterday in his speech did warn that this will be a historic week, and that we are to expect aggravation and especially aggressive behavior from the Kremlin, because this week, most likely, let's knock on wood again, the EU might confirm Ukrainian candidacy to the European Union. And that will be like a red flag for a bull. I mean, we have to take in the psychological aspect here, and that's what it is.
Yeah, well, I think it's important at this time, as much as anything, to remind our listeners, who I'm sure are well informed anyway, but just to underline the fact that this conflict continues and that we stand foursquare with the people of Ukraine. And as you say, there are other areas of tension, Lithuania being one, Kazakhstan being another. And Trump has made clear in his comments, as you suggest, that he regards many of the former Soviet states as essentially part of the Russian Empire, and recent comments he's made have underlined that as well. And it's been fantastic to get your update and the positivity coming out of Odessa in the midst of what is obviously a very difficult situation. We will, of course, stay tuned, Zarina, and speak to you, I hope, on many more occasions in the future. But for now, thank you so much for joining us and updating us. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian, and thank you everyone for listening. And again, I know that that's a lot to follow, but I do share this daily column, which gives you a summary. You can just read the box on top, and it's about 5 to 6 sentences that sums up the situation in Ukraine based on the latest verified sources. And of course, if you are so inclined, you can read the rest of it, which is a lot and in detail. And follow Byline Times as usual. That's the best. And you can also read my work at Euromaidan Press or Bywire News and on my own blog. And thank you so much, Adrian.
Yeah, no, do follow Zarina. Probably the easiest way to track down all her work, and she does regularly appear at Byline Times, but she writes for many other outlets as well, is to follow her Twitter feed at Zarina Zabrisky. I'm Adrian Goldberg. This has been the Byline Times podcast, funded by subscriptions to our wonderful monthly newspaper, the Byline Times. We earnestly recommend that you take out a subscription. It's what keeps us going and ensures that we are free from any kind of proprietorial interference. You can find out how to subscribe at bylinetimes.com. That's at bylinetimes.com. And I would also recommend, if you've got a smartphone, to check out the Bylines app, which opens up the whole world of regional bylines as well. There's a massive galaxy, a universe of Bylines outlets out there. Thanks very much indeed for listening. Thank you, Zarina. See you all next time. Cheers now.